They were the first paparazzi couple. The paparazzi, the expression paparazzi, was built around this couple. The studios had always protected their stars. Publicity was always engineered around the image of the star and the vehicle of the movie. Burton and Taylor kind of, their romance exploded shooting Cleopatra in Rome, a long way away from the studios, far from any control, with the Italian press, which was outside of the US and English studios' control, pretty much leaping on this illicit love affair between two married people, and it went mad. I know from my research that the studios went crazy. Everybody went nuts because it had never gotten out of control like this before. And of course, once it started and they refused to hide, and they did refuse to hide, it snowballed into, something the likes of which I still don't think we've seen again. I mean, the Pope condemned their relationship. The Pope weighed in on their relationship. I haven't seen that again. I mean, in 2012, how often does the Pope, I can imagine a lot of relationships that the Pope could probably weigh in on these days, and doesn't bother because it's all just too common and there's too many of them. But this was, very much the first time that right on front page, right in the eye of the public worldwide, you had this enormous stardom, these two people, flaunting this relationship, and the press just going after them. So, what we ended up with was a very, very intense situation where we were trying to capture these incredibly detailed nuances and extremes of human feeling. So I think that kind of fed into it in a way. In terms of shooting the movie, there wasn't a scene between Lindsay and I that was casual, that was honey past the salt, or would you like sugar with that? It was, everything was enormous, everything was key. These were the great moments into great people's lives. So, you're living a kind of an electric reality, if you like. There's tension in the wire all the time, and I think that really fed into the chemistry between us when we played, because it was all big moments. It were all the most vital moments in a person's life. First of all, you have to get into how much does everybody understand the process of filmmaking. I mean, Lindsay had 61 costume changes and, 19 wig changes. So, how much of that is waiting around for the hairdresser? How much of that is waiting around for wardrobe? How much of that is waiting around for Lindsay? And unfortunately, actors always cop the brunt of everything. And I'm not saying feel sorry for me, it's just that everybody's looking at us. Now, we're the monkeys who put our hands up in the first place and said, everybody look at me, so you can't really complain about it. But, I mean, look, a lot like Liz Taylor, Lindsay grew up in the movies. All she's ever known is standing in front of a camera. And from my experience with people who've grown up acting, there's a kind of a similar paradigm at work where they kind of take their time because it's their life. It's, where they did their homework, where they did their school, where they did their, after school, where they fell asleep was in their trailer. So, I think a lot of the time with people who have been child actors, real life is more making the movie than the life outside the movie. That's more normal, if you like. So, I mean, you wait around for people who have been acting their whole life because they're not in a hurry. That's all they've ever known. At the end of the day, everybody's silent, the phones stop ringing. There's two people in a space, and your job is to lock eyes on each other and tell the truth. There's no baggage in that moment. There may be baggage in the moments before and the moments after, but they don't count. See, at the end of the day, an audience watches the movie. They don't watch the tabloids. And our job is just to transport them, if we can, and entertain them. So, no, doesn't matter. Between action and cut, the only thing that matters is the work.